Hello, welcome to Elizabeth Reads. We've got chapter 12 here of Jemima Small versus the Universe. It's called Orbit. I spent the next couple of days worrying if anyone in my class knew about Fat Club, and trying not to think about the Brainiacs test on Thursday, which wasn't easy because it was all anyone was talking about, but I hadn't signed up. I could work out simultaneous equations and recite the entire periodic table. I knew facts about every planet in the solar system and could tell you virtually every constellation in the sky. But none of that solved the problem of my size, and it made everything else about me dissolve into nothing. It was Wednesday morning, and I was in geography when I noticed Lottie hiding something under her desk. She nudged Alina and laughed extra loudly. Alina didn't laugh, but she looked over at me, then whispered something. Usually I'd ignore them, but today I couldn't. It was a gut feeling or intuition or something. Maybe my psychic powers were awakening, or maybe it was Lottie's ratty sneer that told me whatever she was hiding under her desk had something to do with me. "Is there something you'd like to share with the class, Lottie, Alina?" Mr. Kelly said. "What's so amusing?" "Nothing, Mr. Kelly," Lottie said. "We're just enjoying learning about coastal erosion." Lottie was better at sucking up than my brother. "Okay," Mr. Kelly said suspiciously and went back to writing on the board. Lottie slipped whatever it was into her bag. It looked like a newspaper. She looked over at me and smiled. Something weird was going on. "My audition's at lunch," Miki whispered, squeezing my arm. "Miki, is there something you'd like to share with the class?" Mr. Kelly said, putting his hands on his hips. Miki sang, "Only that I'm going to slay the Mary Poppins audition today." He jumped out of his seat and took a bow. Even Mr. Kelly smiled at that. I tried to smile, but the neurons in my brain were too busy trying to figure out why Lottie would hide a newspaper under her desk. At lunchtime, I walked to the drama studio with Miki and told him to break a leg, as if he needed any luck. He trolled his way through the door singing Chim Chim Chiree. I still had Miki's song in my head when it happened. The words Fat Club came hurling at me across the playground like someone had kicked a football at me. It's not just the pain of it, the pain you get used to. It's the embarrassment and not having anywhere to hide. It's everyone staring because they all heard it too, like you're the most grotesque thing ever, or like they feel sorry for you or they're waiting for you to say something back. Well, I didn't want to shout anything back because the only thing in my head were lines from Mary Poppins, so I smiled. Well, I pretended to smile. You can't smile for real when you feel so embarrassed you want to cry. I caught eyes with Jazz from my math class, who was standing nearby with her friends. "Hey, don't worry about it," she said. "My dad always says today's newspapers will be tomorrow's chip papers." I literally had no idea what she was talking about. "Okay, thanks," I said and walked toward the library. I don't know why I didn't figure it out right then. My brain must have been having an off day. I was sitting at a table in the corner of the library reading my book when I heard, "Ah, Jemima." I looked up to see Mr. Nelson walking towards me. "I thought you might be in here." He perched on the edge of the table with his foot up on a chair, which you're not allowed to do. Stormtrooper stared up at me from his socks. "I've just taken a look at the list of students signed up for the Brainiacs test tomorrow, and your name wasn't on there." I avoided eye contact with Mr. Nelson and the Stormtroopers. "Jemima, you are planning on taking the test, aren't you?" I bit my lip. How could I explain that I wanted to go on Brainiacs more than anything in the world, but I didn't want people to see me on TV? And that anyway, Lottie was right. No one else wanted to see me on TV either. But I couldn't tell Mr. Nelson that. He wouldn't think it was a genuine problem. He thought a genuine problem was being invaded by the barbarians. Plus, he wore the same socks as my brother. "I can't sit the test, sir," I said. "My dad doesn't agree with TV." "What?" "Yeah," I nodded. "He's really old-fashioned. He'd prefer me to enter I glanced at the nearest book I could see, Sewing for Beginners. A sewing competition or something." "Really?" "Yeah, my dad's quite, sexist." Mr. Nelson raised his eyebrows. "Oh, well, I have to say that is a shock, Jemima. Your father certainly seemed very pleasant when I met him at Parents' Evening last year, and proud of all your achievements. But we do need his permission." Mr. Nelson reached over and picked up Sewing for Beginners from the display stand, then looked at me knowingly before putting it back. I sank into my chair. "Well, it's a shame. I mean, I have no idea how good you are at sewing, Jemima, but Brainiacs, I think you're made for that show. In fact, I'd say you're Clifton Academy's best hope." And when he said that, a tiny part of me glowed, like a star when it's just beginning to form. I didn't think about my stomach shrinking or my legs undergoing major surgery or my arms getting infected with flesh-eating disease. I didn't think about any of that stuff. I looked down at the page of the book I'd been reading about animals crazy as camouflage, And I remembered for the first time in ages, just for a moment, what it felt like to not want to hide away. My heart thumped in my chest as I looked up at Mr. Nelson. Is it too late to sign up? All right, that was chapter 12. I'll see you next time for 13.